Do you hate poison oak or poison ivy as much as I do? Probably not, but chances are if you're watching this video, you either have it or you're worried about getting it and what to do next time. And I have some solutions for you. Let me tell you, I am deathly allergic to poison oak and poison ivy. Man, it gets me good anytime I have gotten it, which sucks because obviously I love being in the outdoors, but I have learned some tips and tricks over the years of how to combat it and how to prevent it. I want to give you the lessons that I've learned so that you can take advantage of my pain, ease yours. I've got some prevention strategies and some products that I can definitely recommend when you start to feel that dreaded itch. It's a very specific itch too, isn't it? If you've ever gotten it more than once, you know that you recognize that itch when it comes. It's a different kind of itch. Real quick, I want to say a quick thank you to today's sponsor, White Duck Outdoors. I'm going to be talking about them a little bit later on in this video. Okay, so first of all, just quick overview of what is poison oak and poison ivy, why is it a problem, what is it doing to your body. Both poison oak and poison ivy have the same toxin in them called Urushiol. Urushiol is my mortal enemy. It's actually a misnomer. It's not actually a poison in the sense that it's like a venom or something you would get from a snake. The rash and the reaction that you get is actually a reaction from your immune system that is going into overdrive and hyper reacting to that toxin binding with the cells in your skin. I know, it sounds kind of scary. And there's all levels of sensitivity to it. About 85 to 90% of people are sensitive to it. There is a small percentage of people that actually are not sensitive to it and they can wipe it all over their bodies and never have any kind of reaction whatsoever. And I am very, very jealous of those individuals because I am on the complete opposite end of the spectrum where basically, you know, it's making me itchy just talking about it. If it's just in the area, I can break out in a rash at the drop of a hat, but not quite, but close. I've had it at various levels throughout my life, but I have had a couple of extremely bad exposures and reactions to it where honestly, I don't have any science to back this up, but I believe that the first major reaction I had to it has caused this hypersensitivity in my body to it. Where one time I was playing disc golf, trying to get my disc out of a ravine, and I slipped and I slid down the side of the ravine, ended up sliding all the way through a giant patch of poison ivy, got it all up my back, all down my arm, on my hip and butt. And man, that got me good. I was down for the count for weeks. Luckily, it caught me at a good time in my life. I had just graduated college and I had not started my career yet. So I had some time where I could actually just sit on the couch and try to heal, but it was rough, let me tell you. And it didn't stay in those areas. It continued to grow literally all over my body. I'll just leave it at that, but it was bad. And I tried every product on the market to try to get me some relief. Obviously, went to the doctor, had several different things that they tried. Had to go through 2 different steroid packs. I think they called them Z packs. And they were shocked that I had to go back and get a second round of steroids to try to kill this thing. Finally, the second round, it started to break a few days into that round. But man, I mean, I had that rash for most of that summer. It's making me itchy just talking about it. Oh gosh. So anyway, I've had it in varying degrees since then. Luckily, I live in a place now where it is not very prevalent. Poison oak, you find that on the west coast of the US. In Oregon, it's almost entirely on the west side of the Cascade Ridge, and we live over on the east side. High desert, higher altitude, much less prevalent out here, thank God. But you can find it anywhere from Mexico all the way up to British Columbia on the west coast. Poison ivy is much more prevalent throughout the US, coast to coast, north to south border, pretty much with the exception of what I just mentioned, like those higher mountain regions. It's not so much in California, but obviously very prevalent throughout the majority of the US. Usually you find them around water, usually lower elevations, anywhere from sea level up to a few thousand feet in elevation. So typically if you're doing like an alpine hike or something like that, you're not gonna have to worry about it up at those higher elevations. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. I'm getting into my first main point with this is the best way to get rid of poison ivy is to not get it in the first place. And there's a couple of techniques that you can use. One of those is knowing where you're at, knowing where it's possible, and when you're in an area where it is possibly growing, to be much more vigilant and hyper aware of looking for it and how you are hiking and walking. Usually, if you're on an established trail, you're going to be safe as long as you don't stray. Having said that, poison oak and poison ivy do like to be on edges of things. Edges of water, edges of trails, edges of rock, just making sure that you know where you're at and knowing if it's possible, and then being hyper aware of paying attention to what it looks like. Which brings me to my next point, identification. Leaves of 3, let it be. Everybody knows that, right? But it's not really enough, right? There's hundreds of plants out there that have leaves of 3. So either that can turn you into basically like a, hypochondriac or something about this, where every single plant is, out to get you, which is really not the case. Learn how to identify it well. You're going to feel much safer out there. You're going to be able to avoid it. You're going to enjoy your time not thinking that like every single leaf of 3 is out there, trying to get you. So something I still do today is if I'm going into an area where I think that there's a possibility of poison oak or poison ivy, reacquaint yourself with what it looks like. Look up the pictures online before you go out. Actually just Google image search it so that you can re-cement it in your mind exactly what it looks like. Know how to recognize it. Know that poison oak, it looks like clusters of 3 leaflets, and the leaves actually look like mini oak leaves. Obviously, that's how it gets its name. Know what color they should be at different times of the year. Another good thing to Google before you're going out into an area where it might be. If it's in the fall, Google poison ivy in the fall or in the spring or whatever the case is, because oftentimes the color can completely change between seasons, and it could look totally different than what you have in your mind as the last picture that you looked at. One quick note on the seasons too. In winter, they often lose their leaves, and so it can be harder to recognize, but the stem can still hold the toxin and affect you. So just because you don't see the leaves of 3 doesn't mean that walking through the bushes is totally safe. There could definitely still be stems and branches in there that could totally affect you. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. Do your own research. Make sure you identify it well prior to going out. Reacquaint yourself with it often. Okay, another huge prevention strategy is washing your potentially contaminated clothes with soap and water is going to be critically important. I had this experience a few years ago where I went out to Hell's Canyon and we ended up having to bushwhack through an area to get out of this canyon, and this is kind of a sketchy situation where we were off trail on X, we lost the trail on X, and basically we're kind of stuck in this canyon, and the only way out was to kind of crawl under and through all these bushes down to the Snake River. I knew that there was potentially poison ivy in the area. We never saw any ourselves. We were on the lookout for it. Thought we made it out safe. Didn't have any kind of reaction, the day after the trip or anything like that. Got home, put away my stuff. And a day or 2 later, I went to go put away my hiking boots, which were still sitting in the back of my truck, and grabbed the hiking boots, threw them under my arm while I was carrying something else. Sure enough, a day later, I got poison ivy right under my arm, which obviously came directly from my hiking boots. So if I had taken those boots and I had thrown them in the washing machine or scrubbed them off with some soap and water, probably never would have gotten that. But man, that turned into another bad one for me, and even just from touching the boots, ended up having a huge reaction and had to go to the doctor again on that one, which I'll get to in a minute, where I learned something key for when you do have bad reactions. I'll get to that in a little bit later. I want to talk about the products that I found that have been the most effective, in my opinion, at combating this. But before I do, I want to tell you a little bit about our sponsor today, White Duck Outdoors. They make robust and reliable tents made from a proprietary Dynaduck canvas fabric. If you're planning on going out camping with kids, it's important that, especially early on, that they have a safe, fun, comfortable experience. And man, these White Duck Outdoor tents certainly provide that. They can provide some spacious interiors. They have all different shapes and sizes of tents that they offer. And White Duck makes tents that make you feel like you're in a cabin or a yurt, out in the forest. They're rugged, spacious, and they're built to last for years. And I just got their Avalon Bell tent, and guys, I am loving that thing. It is so much fun to take out with my kids. They love it. I mean, the only problem is I feel like my kids might feel a little bit too spoiled camping in this thing, but I'd rather have them be excited and jumping at the chance to go camping and want to go. I mean, this is a great way to set up a nice family base camp. I have a whole other video on our family base camp setup if you want to check that out in the description. But I think that's what I love most about these tents is they're designed for families and groups that want to make camping a tradition. You can pile in people in these things. You can set up cots. You can even run a wood stove in the colder months. Go check out White Duck Outdoors. I've got a discount code in the description if you're interested. And if you are interested in making a purchase, using that link and discount code in the description really helps support the channel. So thank you to White Duck Outdoors for making it easier for families like mine and yours to get outside together. Okay, so let's get into the products that I have found to be most effective at combating Urushiol. And all of these have a little bit slightly different use and function. And these are the best products that I've found that are most effective for each need. So first of all, there's Tecnu. Tecnu is pretty famous in the world of poison ivy, poison oak fighting. The main product I would recommend from them is their individual wipes. And I'll put links to these in the description, but they make these individual packets of waterless wipes that you can actually just keep in your backpack so that you always have them when you're hiking around. And then if you know that you got exposed to it because you've done your identification practice and you happen to accidentally fall in some or walked through it and you didn't realize it until afterward, and you know the area that's been affected, pull out these wipes, wipe it down, and it's effective at least at removing most of the Urushiol toxin. You know, it may not get all of it, at least it will diminish the amount that is on your skin. And then along with that, Tecnu also makes a ointment for the shower that is good. So if you think you've got exposed, as soon as you can take a shower with soap and use this ointment is going to be more effective than soap at binding to the toxin and removing it from your skin. And so I keep a bottle of that in my shower at all times. Okay, but if you get beyond that and you have actually had a reaction and your body's starting to form a rash, then one of the most effective products I've found at helping to tame the rash and minimize the pain and minimize any kind of like growth of the rash, which by the way, they say is not supposed to happen, that once you have a rash that it's not supposed to grow throughout, you know, elsewhere on your body. I have found that to be patently false. It 100% will grow to other places in my body with just the oils from the rash, not from the Urushiol. Again, maybe it's because I'm hypersensitive to it, but yeah, something to be aware of. It can spread even though the literature online says that that's not the case. So if you do get it, be aware. Wash your clothes, your sheets, careful where you're touching it, where you're getting those oils from your body elsewhere on your body or other people. But anyway, back to containing the rash. The product is called Zanfel. And this one is pricey, but again, worth it to me if I actually have an outbreak happening. Always go pick some of this stuff up. I think it's about 30 bucks for a tube or something like that. Best thing I've found for healing, calming, and preventing the spread of an active rash or reaction. And then an oldie but a goodie, Calamine lotion is probably the best I've found at trying to mitigate the itch. Honestly, it doesn't do a whole lot, but as far as like anti-itch medications, this is what I found is most effective at limiting the pain, limiting the itch of an active rash. And then alongside that, one thing I would just say as far as limiting the pain and the itch is not an actual product, but just a technique of take cold showers. When you have a rash going on, one of the worst things you can do is actually take a hot shower, because that opens up all your pores, opens up that oozing from the rash. That oil is going to come out more, and it actually might feel good in the moment when you're in the hot shower because it kind of feels like you're scratching the itch, but then it's going to make it worse. I have found that it's much more worth it to take a cold shower. It closes those pores, it limits the itch, and it'll help you feel better for a little while after you take the cold shower as well. And if you can't stand to take a cold shower on your whole body, then at the very least, try to limit the area, like if you have it on your arm or something, to, there I go, itching again. Try to, hold your arm or wherever the affected area is out of the hot water. Maybe you can just have it be kind of like lukewarm water. And then at the end of your shower, just spray cold water directly on just that one spot to, minimize the itching. So what happens if it gets worse? What happens if you buy the Zanfel? That doesn't do the trick. It's lingering on for more than a few days and maybe even spreading on your body. Like I said earlier, you can go to a doctor and get a prescription of steroids. Usually that's going to be able to help you kick it. If it's that bad, the doctor is going to prescribe that to you. You could usually get that from an urgent care. I think that's what I did the first time. What I would actually recommend even more is going straight to a dermatologist. If you've got a reaction that seems significant or is not going away after a few days, don't hesitate to go straight to a dermatologist, and they're going to be able to help you much more effectively in a targeted way. And for me, the most effective thing that I have found is to get a prescription for triamcinolone acetonide. And they'll give you a prescription of that, and it comes in a giant jar of ointment. And that stuff I have used several times, and I have found it to be the best, most effective at taming the rash and diminishing it as quickly as possible. And so now that's my go-to. Anytime I have an outbreak, I'm going to go try to get a prescription for that as quickly as possible. If you're as hypersensitive as me, highly recommend it. Obviously, I'm not a doctor. Go see a real doctor. You can request this and see if they think that's an appropriate treatment for you. All right, so there you go. Those are my tips and techniques for fighting poison oak, poison ivy. Let me know if you have other things that you've tried that has been effective for you. I'm always all ears for any additional arrows in my quiver when it comes to this. So leave those in the comments. And if this was helpful, please give it a like. I'll see you on the next video. And don't forget, you got this, Dad.